SANDHAN, All Gujarat Integrated Classroom.
સેટેલાઇટના માધ્યમથી જોડતી કડી એટલે સંધાન.
Good morning, friends. Today's our topics are bank and secretarial correspondence. Bank and secretarial correspondence, as you know, are prescribed in all of our universities in Gujarat. As you know, that in all our commercial or business correspondence, there are certain qualities, there are certain characteristics which we have to implement, which have to use in order to make our correspondence and communication more skilled, powerful, effective. We'll start our lecture with certain qualities which are applied to both kind of correspondences, bank and secretarial correspondence. First of all, let's see. Concise. Letters should be concise. Conciseness is one of the very important quality of business correspondence. So is true about bank or secretarial correspondence. Letters should be very concise, very brief, complete. Letter should be complete in itself. Nothing should be left out. If you write a letter for some purpose, that purpose should be very clear. If the qualities are maintained, letter will be effective. Should be correct grammatically, language-wise, and whatever the subject matter you write, it should be correct. So correctness is also one of the most important quality of bank and secretarial correspondence. Consider it. You approach. It should be directly addressed to the person to whom we write the letter. So it should have the value of consideration. Later, suppose it is complaint letter, complaint to bank service, complaint to the company, then also the tone of the letter should be courteous, it should be polite. These are the qualities which should be maintained while bank or secretarial correspondence we do. Last but not the least, it should be logical. And whatever you write should have logical links. Should not that anything can be written anywhere, line by line, sentence by sentence, paragraph by paragraphs. There should not be more paragraphs, 2 or 3 paragraphs, but all the paragraphs should have logicality. There should be reasonable, rational link. Now the topics. What kind of topics can there be in bank correspondence? Stop payment of check. Suppose some check has been written and the check is lost or being tapped, then you have to inform the bank to stop the payment of the check. Error in the passbook or bank statement or demat account. Suppose there is some error, the person should write to the bank. Wrongful dishonor of a check. You have written a check and in spite of sufficient amount in your bank, in your account, if due to some mistake, due to some error, misunderstanding, if the check has been dishonored, the person or the client or the account holder should write later complaining that the bank has dishonored the check improperly. Requesting bank support for social welfare. This is very important thing. Banks have sufficient fund to help the weaker section or needy section of society. You can request the bank to support for social welfare. Asking for annual statement of housing loan. This is one of the topics on which the person can write later you have got a housing loan for some amount, suppose 5 lakh rupees. Each year you have to get the income tax benefit. You can get income tax benefit. In order to avail that benefit, you have to produce housing loan statement of the bank, in which principal amount and interest should be mentioned properly. Complain about the rude behavior of a bank employee. Nowadays, bank services have been improved, but sometimes some member of staff of the bank, suppose, does not behave properly, then the customer or account holder or holders have to complain about that person's behavior. These are the topics. Non-credit of shares in demat account. Nowadays, SEBI has made it compulsory to have demat account to deal in share market. Suppose you have bought some shares and the shares have not been credited in your demat account, then you have to write to the bank manager or the bank authority about the non-credit of shares. Error in demat account. There can be errors in demat account, and that has to be mentioned in your letter clearly what kind of error you have. These are transfer of demat shares. Suppose you are a new person, you don't know how to transfer the shares in demat account from one demat account to another demat account. Then you have to write down to your bank manager or bank authority, and they will help you how to transfer the shares or how to transfer shares in another demat account. Now, I would like to give a specific later specimen which may give you an example which is short, having all the qualities of bank correspondence, and the topic of this letter is non-credit of shares in demat account. First of all, as you know that addresses should be written, writer's address at top hand right side and the manager's or the receiver's address at the margin side. Then the subject line after the address, dear sir, non-credit of shares in my demat account, this is the subject line, and quickly we'll have a look at the content of the letter. I have my demat account number so and so with your branch of the bank. I bought 300 shares of Reliance Petro on 30th October 2010, but the shares have not been credited to my account. This is the precise beginning of the letter. Here in the beginning you have the introduction of your account number. Introduction doesn't mean that you introduce yourself. No, your relation with the bank, what number account you have with the bank, then what is the precise complaint you are going to make. And what you require now, what you what you wants the bank authority to do. I request you to look into the matter and rectify the mistake. The request is to look into the matter, find out the mistake, find out the error and correct it. I hope you will inform me about the action taken by you. With regards, thanks a lot. Yours sincerely, sign. Now you can see this letter, non-credit of shares in account, is very short. So it is precise. It is brief. It does not move round and round. It gives you the full detail of the account number, what you require, what has happened, which shares you bought, and why you have written this letter to the bank manager. And at last, he wants to know that he or she, I'm sorry, she wants to know that the person has bought the shares and still the shares have not been credited to her account. So she wants to find out the mistake, correct it, and she also wishes to inform her, banks to inform her. And that was the concluding part of the letter. And at last, courteous note, that is, with regards, thanks, yours sincerely. And then letter ends. Nowadays, I feel that bank correspondence has been so much neglected. It is not required to be done, because most of the things, most of the services have been provided by the bank in the form of you have to just fill up the forms. You just submit the forms. Suppose you want to open an demat account, they will give you a form. You have to just provide all the data, all the particulars, and they will open the account. You require loan, they will give you a form. You have to fill up the form and you will get the loan if all the documents are provided correctly. So, least need in bank correspondence, but we have to understand how to write, how to communicate in written form. So, there are certain topics which we deal with still, because sometimes when you orally communicate and doesn't work, then you have to write down, because writing is legally, documentarily very important. It gives you an evidence that you have made complaint, you have informed, etc. Now we'll move to the other topics which we require in bank correspondence. Error in passbook, in bank statement. Suppose you require passbook. You find that there is some mistake in your passbook or in bank statement, which are very essential. First thing, you have to introduce yourself. Again, I say introduction means not your personal introduction, not your name, your address, to which class or caste you belong to, what is your nationality. No, that is not introduction I mean here. Introduction means which account do you hold, number of the account, for how many years you hold this account, and you saw that there was an error in your passbook or statement. So, nature of error, pointedly it should be indicated. What is the error? Whether there is some lapse, whether there is error in calculation of interest, what is the nature of error? That should be clearly mentioned. Curiosity to know the reason. It also should be mentioned that I would like to know why this error has occurred in my passbook or in my bank statement. And last, you have to request the manager to rectify the mistake. Now, these are the points we should remember while we write a letter to the manager regarding error in the passbook or bank statement. The next topic can be wrongful dishonor of a check. Suppose you have written a check to some person, you have drawn in favor of some Mr. R.K. Sharma, suppose, for 5,000 rupees on particular date. And then the person, again here introduction means this, to whom you have written the check, what was the amount, and details means amount, check number, on which date you have written the check, and what happened to that. You find that the check was returned by the bank authorities. despite the fact that there was sufficient amount in your account. If this thing happened, you naturally ask for explanation. You should be curious to know why, despite the fact that I have sufficient amount in my account and the check has been returned dishonored. This may tarnish your image in the market, or the person would not like it to whom you have written the check. So you ask for correction, you ask for explanation. Asking for annual statement of housing loan can be another topic for writing later to the bank correspondence. Nowadays, many people go to bank and ask for the housing loan. And again here, when you need statement of housing loan, you have to provide account number, loan amount, when the loan was sanctioned by the bank, then need of annual statement. Why do you need this annual statement? And what is the purpose behind this annual statements getting? One can be the income tax purpose, which is the most important. And many people require the annual statement of housing loan because they want to avail the income tax benefits. And that has to be clearly mentioned in the bank correspondence, this kind of letter. Requesting bank support for social welfare. As I mentioned earlier, that there are many NGOs, there are many institutions who work for the poorer or weaker sections of the society, and they try to collect the fund to support these poor or weaker section of society. So they